What's going on, Star Wars fans? Welcome to Star Wars Doctrine's podcast. This is episode 13. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more future Star Wars content. Anything that there is to talk about Star Wars, that's what we're talking about here. Me and the other face of Star Wars Doctrine, we're just leading discussions, talking about everything there is to talk about. So I'm really excited. Got some good stuff to talk about with you this week, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into it.
For sure. So here we go. We're going to be hitting a little bit about Star Wars Celebration. Kind of probably the last time we'll be talking about Celebration, with it being, like 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
But one of the things we talked about on our Instagram, which you guys need to check out so we can participate in these discussions, was what are you most excited for Celebration?
Certainly, yeah.
Going into it, I think people had a lot of different expectations. I know there's a lot of fans who are also personally quite worried on what was going to be revealed, and kind of counting on Celebration to be that Kickstarter for everyone's excitement. And for me, it really delivered.
Yeah, that was a good celebration.
All in all, I definitely agree. So, I guess, what are you most excited from Celebration?
Oh man, it's interesting. My and I think like one of the comments we'll talk about here in a sec. I had different excitements going in than I did coming out. I mean, obviously I'm excited for everything, but going in I was really looking forward to Mandalorian and everything that was going to bring to the table. I was really excited for Clone Wars Season 7 and just going to see trailers from both of those. And those were my two main things. But coming out of Celebration, I think hands down my number one excitement was Episode 9.
Right.
The trailer, the panel, everything was so well done on that I went in not sure what to expect on that, came out major pumped. What about you?
Right, no, I totally agree. So I went in for wholeheartedly basically invested in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Just felt that seeing Jon Favreau direct a TV show, Definitely. Huge Star Wars budget, fun Star Wars timeline that we've not discussed.
Yeah.
I don't know, I was really excited for that, and the panel did not disappoint. There was great discussion. Hearing the cast talk about it really kept me excited. But something I was hesitant about was Episode 9.
Yeah.
It's just been a lot of questions about Star Wars films in the past little bit. So going into the 9 Celebration panel, I was kind of worried, but honestly, they got me fully on board. I'm pumped for 9, and it really gave us so much to talk about. So there's so much theories floating around. It's really fun time to be a Star Wars fan, I think, really coming from Episode 9.
How many times have you watched the trailer?
Probably almost 100. It's
yeah.
been, I watched it about 50 times the first day, so.
Yeah, that's probably not an exaggeration either, because I've probably watched it with you, just 20 times together, just dissecting it, so yeah. No, I think we're on the same page with that. Now, like I said, I'm still majorly excited for Mandalorian and Clone Wars and stuff like that. I just am more excited about 9 than I expected to be, I guess. So.
No, yeah, I agree. I think going in, I was hoping that Celebration would make me, excited for everything, but also...
Which it did, for me.
It definitely did. There wasn't a thing I was man, after seeing Celebration, I don't care about this. No, I was definitely oh wow, that's a new facet that I'm excited about. Seeing how giddy the characters and cast of Mandalorian was, that was really interesting.
That was cool. And just getting to meet them, right?
Right, yeah, and I didn't know anything about them before.
No, yeah, me either.
Besides Favreau, but
right.
I guess with Episode 9, I was kind of hesitant. I was I don't know what we're gonna expect.
What direction we're going.
Exactly. We had no title, we had nothing.
True.
But they had a good panel. And I don't know, that trailer, right?
Yeah, and I think the title reveal plays into it for me as well. They marketed it really good, getting us to think they were releasing the title multiple times, because I think Disney had a hand in that. All these different leaks. Oh, it's going to come out this day. It's going to come out that day. I think Disney was just trying to get us more excited, and I kind of think it worked, because I was dying to get the title. And then when I finally got the title, it was so surprising that it just, I don't know, it hooked me.
Right.
So yeah, that was part of it.
So I think moving in, we'll discuss some of our comments. So a lot of times we check out what our Instagram or Facebook users are saying about our posts. And hear about this first one. It's by Hans Greedo. He said about what he was most excited for Celebration, or her, or whatever. Mandalorian for sure. The old school set and vibe. I mean, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan for sure, but everything's looking great. And I think I can respect that, The Mandalorian, it's going to be set in the original trilogy, and I think from the Celebration panel we got that understanding that it's still going to be true to that old school original trilogy vibe that we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, Favreau had a really cool quote saying, if you've been a fan for 40 years, you're not going to be disappointed.
That was the exact thing that came to my mind. I'm glad you said that, because, yeah, it was like, this is for the original fans, right? It's going to be something that everyone can watch. I'll tell you one thing that was cool. I was talking to one of my friends the other day and his wife, and she was talking about how she never grew up on Star Wars, and he's been trying to get into the movies, and it's been a little harder for her, but she's been very, like, a TV show, like, yeah, I'll totally watch that with you, like, that'll be fun. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic. Maybe having a TV show platform will catch other people's interests that maybe aren't into the movies as much.
Right.
I don't know. That's interesting. But if they do well with The Mandalorian, it's going to be... that's just a side note. But that's if they do well with The Mandalorian, it's going to bring a whole new dynamic to the franchise. And the old sets, they've talked about... Favreau and Filoni talked about it being very... like an old Western kind of thing. Like they
Right.
drew inspiration from old Westerns, which is totally like George Lucas type of stuff and stuff that he was interested in. And
I think it's a good match for what The Mandalorian set up to be.
right,
And
gunslinger type of...
yeah, it seems like they're really set up. I feel like Mandalorian, we got our lawless, but aimed at like original trilogy fans. Everyone can enjoy. Clone Wars is more geared at the younger generation.
Right. It's fun to have something for both.
We got kind of like both audiences. If
Yeah.
you've been a fan since the prequels, you're probably more involved in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But like Hans Greedo said, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
Right, and it doesn't matter because you got stuff for everyone, and for me, I'm going to watch it all. So
Exactly, right? Daily Sheev said, also excited for episode 9. We got amazing trailers from Celebration, and how true that is, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't disappointed by a single trailer I saw.
Yeah. Trailers in general.
Right.
Yeah,
We got
no,
trailers
that's a good
for
point.
everything.
There wasn't a single trailer that I watched that I was disappointed with. That's a good point. I agree with that.
And then
Well done.
This was from our Facebook page, I believe.
Yeah.
Sam Steves said, before Celebration, I was most excited for 9, but now I'm most excited for The Mandalorian.
See, that's funny because I had a conversation with him where I said I was kind of almost the opposite because, like, going in, I was more excited for Mandalorian. Came out with episode 9, so that's cool though because it's good to see the opposite side of that where they just did so well with every panel. I mean, all
Right.
the panels were so well done, so interesting. I mean, most of them were like an hour to a little longer than an hour. And every time I sat down and watched one, I was like, oh my gosh, the hour's already up. Like, I was just drawn into it. So,
True.
very, very well done.
It was an enjoyable time. But with all of this crazy information from the panels, you know what that means? It's time to discuss about more things about Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't check out the panels, we encourage you to. But if not, there's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about from Star Wars and other leaks. And we're going to be moving into episode 9 right now. So those of you who might have followed some pages earlier might have heard about a character named Matt Smith. He's a person, an actor. He's probably most well known for working as Doctor Who.
Right.
So if you follow that fandom, then you probably heard about his potential casting in episode 9, rumored to be a big role. But recently he came out and said, hey, I'm not in episode 9 as far as I know.
Yeah, which is interesting.
So it's a very interesting thing, but we're working mainly with some material from a website known as The Making of Star Wars. And really good website, usually really interesting leaks, so definitely check them out. But they're talking about how some international Disney websites are confirming that Matt Smith is still going to be in the film.
All right.
And they're just trying to, shut it out so there's
And that's why
more
Disney,
mystique around.
Yeah, Disney had them denying it because they didn't want people to really know. They wanted it to be more of a surprise, which makes sense. I still think it's kind of weird for him just to blatantly say, like, no, I'm not in it. Like, not to even just be like, oh, maybe, I don't know, you have to wait and see, but just be like, no, I'm not in it. I don't know, kind of weird, but it's...
I agree. I mean, to me, I think with Palpatine being we didn't know that was going to happen, but we know from the trailer that was, like, a big enough, like, holy crap.
Yeah, we don't really necessarily need another one with an actor, right? I mean,
yeah.
does it matter?
Maybe it will. We'll find out, right?
Yeah.
But this is important that he's in it because, well, this is good. We're going to work through a theory that deals with the fate of Kylo Ren and how Emperor Palpatine can make an appearance through Matt Smith's character.
So as always on this channel, I would give you guys a fair warning. Like, we do talk about things that are, I wouldn't necessarily say spoilers, but potential spoilers, because obviously there's no way we know what's going to happen in the movie. But we're going to talk about anything that surfaces theory-wise, just because that's what's fun to talk about and to make guesses and see what could happen. So if you're being very protective about not wanting to hear any theories or anything, then I would say probably plug your ears, But we will move into that. Yeah. Yeah.
Exit out.
we do talk about a lot of that stuff here, and mostly just for speculation concern. Like I said, just because you hear it here, it obviously doesn't mean it's going to happen or it is what's going to happen. So just a fair warning, though. So yeah, let's move into that.
All right. With our spoilers, not really, warning set aside, here's the rumor. So the rumor involves Palpatine being able to transfer his essence, which is something we personally already talked about
last week
in our last week's podcast, which I'm actually kind of hoping for.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
But the idea is that Matt Smith is going to play a character who's basically a dark side acolyte. So a follower of the dark side, not a Sith, but someone who maybe worships the dark side or is very interested into it. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because we haven't really seen a lot of that. I mean, Kylo Ren and Snoke aren't really Sith themselves, but to say they're like acolyte-ish doesn't really...
It's different. Well, and like we were talking about earlier, it's just, I think the Jedi have always had people who believe in the Force but aren't necessarily Force users, aren't necessarily, well, maybe not even just Force users, but aren't necessarily Jedi themselves.
Right.
They're not of the Jedi religion, they're not, in the Jedi Order, but they do believe in the Force, and like, Chirrut, or from Rogue One, like he's a guardian of the wills of the Kyber Temple, so he's not a Jedi, but he really believes in the Force and gives everything to the Force, the light side. You would think there would have to be that for the dark side as well, right?
Right.
Like people who were into the dark side weren't necessarily Sith, but worshipped the dark side of the Force or used it, or I don't know how to explain it. But
I can tell you from the current fandom, there would definitely be a lot of people who would follow the dark side right now, even if they weren't Sith themselves.
Definitely.
But I do think it's an interesting thing, and there's been some EU books have dealt with the idea of dark side acolytes and worshippers of the dark side as a religion, so kind of an interesting spin in. But, so basically, Matt Smith is going to be an acolyte, follower of the dark side, but he's going to be possessed by Palpatine. That Palpatine would basically take over his character, and he would willfully submit to it. Right, so basically Palpatine would inhabit his body, probably getting rid of any remainder of who Matt Smith originally was, and then Emperor Palpatine will try and go about his business.
Interesting.
Leading up to a final fight. And this would be really interesting because a lot of people have speculated that if Kylo Ren is to make some sort of comeback and work with Rey, there needs to be another villain, right? With the absence of Snoke.
They gotta defeat. Can't be Snoke.
Right. So that would culminate in the final battle would be Matt Smith's character possessed by Palpatine against Rey and Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo.
And I really like this theory. One thing, too, it's kind of tying in is there's been a lot of talk about a supposed, not necessarily a Sith, but a dark side user who's been hanging out in the unknown regions.
Right.
That's been talked about a lot for, like, the last couple of months. People are saying that, he could be, like, a third-party bad guy in this. And, like, until the trailer happened, I don't think anybody was like, oh, maybe it's possessed Palpatine, or someone who's possessed by Palpatine. I wasn't thinking that at all, but this could be that same character, possibly, and he's just possessed by Palpatine, and he's been hanging out in the unknown regions hiding, or maybe he's hanging out on the Death Star. I don't know. But
right, it is interesting.
It makes sense. It lines up.
It does seem to line up, and if he is in the unknown regions, we know that theoretically one of the rumors was that the Knights of Ren originally went to the unknown regions
looking for something
as assigned by Kylo Ren. So,
and that's why they haven't been in the past films.
So
that's the rumor. At least.
That's the rumor, at least. So that'd be interesting if they ended up finding him and seeing that sort of tie-in. But anyways,
that's how Kylo comes into contact with him.
Yeah,
they find out about him. Interesting.
But anyways, it kind of moves into the idea. We have this epic showdown, of course. Kylo Ren and Rey teaming up to fight the ultimate evil, Emperor Palpatine, which is I find great. Emperor Palpatine has always been the embodiment of true evil.
So Emperor Palpatine, but in Matt Smith's body,
Right.
would it be Palpatine's voice? Because if he's possessing him, I think it should be Palpatine's voice. And Ian McDiarmid, if he's technically has been on set to record stuff, but it hasn't necessarily been acting,
that'd be interesting.
Maybe he's voicing over.
Yeah, I personally would be for that, just because
It wouldn't feel Palpatine-ish if you don't hear his voice. How would you know it's Palpatine?
Yeah,
if it doesn't look like him.
Even if he like put on some dark robes and had a jacked up face. I mean,
yeah,
it just really. I feel like we can't have Palpatine in the film without Ian McDiarmid's voice. I really
That's
don't.
what I'm thinking. So that'd be cool.
So that would be an interesting way to do it. And something that actually would kind of be interesting with that is the theory is obviously Rey and Kylo end up defeating Emperor Palpatine, but as they kill Matt Smith's body, or Emperor Palpatine's essence would flee the body and try and take over Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. This would be important because the theory is Kylo Ren, being a dark side user, can be inhabited by Emperor Palpatine, where Rey, never really touching that stuff, can't be possessed by him.
Okay. So that's the rules of possession in Star Wars then? If
that's
the
case, theory.
That'd be the theory, yeah.
But then obviously Kylo didn't say like, hey, Palpatine, jump into my body. So there's going to be a huge like resistance mind battle, which is interesting because we have seen that in The Force Awakens between Kylo trying to always overpower people's minds and being very successful at it until he encountered Rey.
Right, like when he gets Poe to tell him where BB-8, or where the map is that's in BB-8, even though Poe's resisting it, and you see that fight back and forth. So something similar to that.
Something similar.
But in Kylo's
but
body.
Like all internal in Kylo with himself and the essence of Palpatine.
So you get like Kylo talking 1 minute, and then all of a sudden it's Palpatine's voice, and then Kylo again, and then Palpatine, he's trying to fight for control of the body.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting.
Cool. It'd be trippy.
Interesting. I don't know how many of you guys have seen like the 2001 Spider-Man with William Dafoe as the Green Goblin, but like I think of that sort of scene where he's like realizing that he is the Green Goblin, and he's like arguing with himself in a mirror.
Yeah,
it's a really cool. It's a great acting scene by William Dafoe. But
yeah, interesting.
Kind of a similar thing, but it's really cool because this moves into the idea of Redemption. Kylo, realizing that he probably can't overpower Palpatine, asks Rey to kill him. And then I think ultimately the theory is that Kylo would turn his lightsaber on himself, that Rey would choose not to kill him. But this would be an interesting way that Kylo Ren would follow in the footsteps of Darth Vader and redeem himself through sacrifice.
Well, as far as redemption goes, I think that's the best theory, best idea I've heard so far. Because I've been very skeptical of having redemption just because I think he's been developed really well, his character. And also, just didn't necessarily want to see a rehash or redo of Vader just saving someone's, like how Vader saved his son to live. Like, that's not exactly what I wanted to have happen with Kylo. But this would be a way, to me, that it's different enough, cool enough, and he's not necessarily... I mean, I guess he could be kind of turning his back on everything he's done, but more to me, it's like he realizes that he's the only one who can defeat him, and it is for the greater good of the galaxy, and he would do it.
Well, there's the question leading up to if Kylo Ren and Rey are showing down with Matt Smith / the Emperor. When did Kylo come onto that party? Is it because...
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Matt Smith is / Emperor has turned into like an emperor, like regaining all of this power and starting to really wipe out people, and Kylo Ren realizes, well, he's lost power. He's not going to really be the supreme leader.
Okay.
Which would be interesting because we know Hux doesn't want him to be. So if a new powerful party comes on that theoretically Kylo can't beat by himself,
maybe Hux is working with Palpatine to undermine Kylo.
Yeah, that would be interesting, and it would kind of show, Hux is always looking for someone else to follow. He doesn't like Kylo.
Yeah.
So finding this new proponent who Hux would willingly follow, forcing Kylo out of the First Order.
Right.
That would be a good way for him to kind of team up with Rey without making it like, hey guys, I want to be a good guy.
I want to be a good guy again, even though I killed my father, right? Because no one's going to forgive him for that.
I do think one problem I have with people disputing Kylo Ren's redemption is they say, he's too far gone. He's done too many bad things, right? He killed his dad. And as much as I'm like mad about like Han Solo dying, I mean, we all knew it was coming.
Right.
But Anakin, like, slaughtered, like, 20 kids.
That's
and we were
true.
all fine when
We
he
all
came
forgive
back.
that.
I mean, granted, in
Well-
episode 6, if you saw it, if you didn't see the prequels first, we had no
Right.
idea he murdered a bunch of kids. But then again, Darth Vader was never portrayed in the original trilogy as having the slightest respect of being a good person. He was portrayed
Right.
as an evil, jacked up, terrible guy who kills people.
You know,
The
that's a
first
good
thing
point.
we see with him on screen is literally choking someone out and snapping their neck.
Yeah. In episode 4. Right. So that's a good point. And I wonder how we would look at him differently had episodes 1 through 3 come out before 4 through 6.
Right.
If we would just absolutely like be disgusted with Vader and hate him more, or like, because he gets kind of romanticized, his character, like the redemption that he gets, but like, would we be willing to forgive him if we had watched 1 through 6, like knowing, hey, this guy killed younglings? Like, I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah,
So,
and then I
to
think
say-
with Kylo, we only see his bad things. We see
Right.
nothing good he's ever done.
No.
Where if you did watch the prequels, you know, hey, Anakin was a good guy. Anakin did try for the most part. You even know he's mainly lost on this path for love. But what if we just stitched together the things that Darth Vader's done that's bad?
Right.
Him massacring a village of Tusken Raiders. Him killing younglings.
All the Jedi.
Killing all the Jedi, even just in general. And then, like, some of the scenes
the
from the original
rebels.
trilogy where he's killing rebels. Like Rogue One, where he just... that awesome scene in Rogue One where he just decimates
Yeah.
those troops.
Well, and then taking out entire planets with the Death Star.
Right, yeah, that seems pretty wrong, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a high death count. He's probably killed more, well, he's definitely killed more people than probably Kylo Ren, so if we're willing to forgive Vader, just because we all love Han Solo, it would be kind of ridiculous to not be willing to forgive Kylo Ren. I get that.
So I think that's been a problem I have. But then again, I'm not saying I'm, like, super unborn for redemption. I just... At the end of the day, 1 through 9 this is the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
So I want the Skywalkers to end in a good place. You know,
Okay.
in 6 we ended with, we lost Darth Vader, who was the main character in 1 through 3, basically. But we did see Luke and Leia basically live out something in happiness. So it'll be interesting to see how the Skywalker family, I guess, leaves and caps off their story.
Definitely. Yeah, I really like this theory, personally. I'd be all for it. That'd be a really good way to me to bring Palpatine back without it being like, hey, he survived, because I think that would be crazy ridiculous if he actually survived. But like a haunting, like a possession, the dark side, that totally makes sense to me that something like that could happen. So I definitely think that's a good theory.
And I like the contrast of having Matt Smith do someone who, in my mind, would willfully be like, oh, I've been chosen for this. I will give my body to Emperor Palpatine,
Yeah.
to Lord Sidious, like, and then obviously see Palpatine easily overpower him and crush what's ever left of his resistance. But when you come against with Kylo, like the idea of like contrasting a willing versus unwilling host body.
Yeah. So, okay. And that's a good point you bring up, too. Like, I hadn't thought about that. We have Kylo Ren, who pretty much worships Vader.
Right.
So, it's not far-fetched to think that this Matt Smith, like, his character could be worshipping Sidious, right? Like,
Right.
he could be obsessed with Sidious and, yeah, feel honored that he's being chosen to give up his body for Sidious. Like, yeah, that's something that could come into play. It'd be really, really cool to see.
It'd also be interesting, with him being called an acolyte, that's generally a religious term, and obviously the sides of the Force have been shown as like a religion plenty of times.
Right.
So having that kind of like religious fanatic where he's just willing to give everything up, I think that's also kind of a good building point. I'm definitely curious to see if we will get some sort of this theory, to what extent we're going to get it. I do think it's interesting, and I do think there might be some truth to Matt Smith's character being important with the hush-hushness of it.
Yeah. You wouldn't be so concerned with hiding him if he wasn't going to play a big role.
Exactly.
Like, if he just had a small cameo for 2 minutes, it'd be like, really? You hit it for that?
Hey, I mean, then again, they did hide, who was it, Daniel Craig's appearance as a stormtrooper in episode 7, so
Yeah.
this could be complete crap.
Right. We're speculating for nothing. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for this week, guys. If you have any of your theories or tell us what you think on some of this, let us know in the comments section, everything like that. Hope you guys have a great week. May the force be with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because
it is your destiny.